Hello and a warm welcome to our today's edition of the IDM on site series. Today we're taking a closer look to the actual situation in Albania, a country that was hit by two enormous earthquakes. The first one in November last year and then in January again. And all that happened before the Corona crisis at the moment. And before that crisis, also the EU promised €1 billion for reconstruction, and the situation has completely changed, also due to the lockdown. And for discussing the actual situation in Albania at the moment, we appreciate to welcome Rudina Lula, who is expert on EU integration for more than 12 years. So many thanks for joining us and for sharing your experience. Hello, Rudina.
Hello, Sylvia. Thank you for this invitation. It's really a pleasure to discuss with you today about current situation in Albania.
For the introduction, I would like to mention that you hold a master degree of law from the University of Warsaw, and you started in 2006. So with Albania's agreement of stabilization and association agreement with the European Union. So and you also were in enormous steps involved. For example, also the visa regime, which was then also in 2009, which was ended, and which gave also many people optimism and also the possibility to travel into the world and Europe. So, however, at the moment we are facing still the coronavirus measures in all Europe, so in Albania. And when we take a look at the infection rates in Albania at the moment, fortunately, there are not that many, 1,000 people recovered. People are less than 800, and regretfully 31 people died. So all in all, I think it's a situation which is under control. But Rudina, I would like to ask you how the measures and all the lockdown looks like in Albania, and how does the population accept all these restrictions?
Yes, Sylvia, thank you. It's true, as per yesterday figures about the infection rates. Actually, in Albania we have 948 cases, positive cases, 31 deaths, and 727 recovered cases. So, as you mentioned, it seems that the situation is under control, no very high figures. As the first cases was confirmed in 8 March in Albania, immediately the government of Albania took measures and locked down completely the country. Land and air and sea borders are closed until the further notice, and Albania Prime Minister declared we are in war. So very strict measures was undertaken and decided by the government. As we can see, and in my opinion, in compare with the region, we have the most stricter measures. And I think due to these measures, we have these figures, infection rates today. As regard the measures, as per yesterday, the measures are lifting down. So the country is divided in two areas, green area and red area. In green area, it's now possible to go out, to go to the work without permission. As regard to the red area, we have also lifted the measures, but there are also this restriction. In order to go out, you need to take the permission, and the permission is from 8 to 7 p.m. The government is still monitoring, and has said, the Prime Minister said that this week it will be kind of piloting to see the new measure introduced during the weekend. So, but almost for 2 months, use of private cars in intercity transport is banned, and bar and restaurant and business were closed. Only business has started last week, to most of them to work, and from yesterday bar and restaurants are open, but with very strict measures and control under the government. In March 2020, the government adopted also some emergency legislation and introduced various measures for breaches of protocols for COVID, and very high fine and penalty were introduced for who are breaching these protocols. And Albania government extends state emergency till 23 of June. These are some of the measures. In parallel, government of Albania took some measure in order to cope with all this implication in economy, because it's evident that a lot of sector of economy will affect due to this COVID, especially tourism and businesses. So Albania government started to compensate some of self-employment, some businesses, small businesses in Albania, but of course it's not enough to compensate all the damage caused by not only COVID, but in Albania we had also the earthquake. So the situation is very complex, and we are going through very hard time in Albania.
And then you promised 1 billion euro for reconstruction. Can that be seen? And is there the help for and also the start of the reconstruction, or is with the lockdown everything closed, so no effects?
Before I go to this reconstruction, just to mention that EU has committed and reallocated approximately 400 million euro support for Western Balkan, and for Albania, in the case of Albania, 4 million euro for immediate support to health sector was released, and it is expected that very soon it will release 11 million euro to support social protection and 35 million euro towards economy recovery. As regard the reconstruction, due to the earthquake, the physical work was suspended, but now has started. So yes, European Commission, with the initiative of European Commission, in February 2020 was organized a donor conference to support Albania to cope with after the earthquake, because we had the first earthquake in 21st of September with a magnitude of 5.6. At least 108 people were injured and 120 buildings were damaged in September. The second one, which was the strongest earthquake in the last 15 years, was in end of November, 26 November, with a magnitude 6.4. Thousands of buildings were destroyed and seriously damaged, including here public, private, schools, healthcare facility. 51 people died. So the situation was very complex and very which impacted our economy, and we expected impact. And
So the picture has freezed, and I do not hear any sound.
first,
Okay, Rudina, you were talking about, I had that an interruption. So you were talking about all the help by the European Union and also the conferences and all regarding all the disastrous effects of the earthquakes. So three heavy earthquakes in one line is really, and additionally also the COVID measures, and in a way, if I may say, it's ironical because the unemployment rate was until last year and beginning of this year was the lowest in comparison to all the years before. So as I know, it's something 11.9. And my question now is, so all the effects, what do you see? What are your perceptions and perspectives regarding the socio-economic developments, and how youth, especially young people, can cope with all the outcomes and the situation, all in all, with regards to the earthquakes and also the Corona crisis?
Yes, both situation, earthquake and COVID, will have long-term implication in Albania economy, especially in the sector of tourism. Albania government had initially forecast to have growth in 2020 in the range of 3 to 4%, but now we cannot expect and discuss about this rate. Tourism will be very heavily negative affected by COVID. We know that tourism contribute around 10% of GDP in the Western Balkan, and as regard Albania, tourism is contributing around 21% of the GDP and 22% of employment in Albania. So now, according to some study research, it seems that all the tour operators are facing difficulties, and they announced that this season, summer season, will be normal. Most of them, they did cut off the employees not only in the Albania but also in the region. And last day I just read an article of European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and as regards Albania, they foreseen that GDP will drop down with 90% to compare with 2019, last year. So as I mentioned, the Albania government took some measure for certain category of employee, businesses, self-employed, but this is not enough to recuperate the damage for both situations. Actually, the government has started to implement strategy for gradual reopen. The country is working, and as they announced, they are going within May to announce the tourism strategy for this summer. They are planning to open the border with the neighbors. But let's see, nothing official so far. So let's see how it will be the strategy for tourism, one of the sectors that have very impact in our economy and GDP.
Because the infection rates, as we talked previously, are fortunately very low. So it's when we also take other to look to other countries which have low infection rates, they are all prepared to open up for tourism, such as Slovenia, which is changing with the strategy. So as we could here in the last days, but Croatia is prepared, of course, Austria with countries around which also have low infection rates. So all in all, when we talk about Albania, we could say in a way that it's a success story. So with the lockdown, with if you agree with the concrete numbers, but the socio-economic situation, it's as you mentioned, this is a problem. And also, I would like to ask you about the remittances. Are they also at a risk? Because, for instance, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, with all the travel and mobility regulations, also the remittances are lower than in the previous years. Do you have numbers and also some opinions what is to expect regarding people working abroad and sending remittances to Albania?
Yes, it's true that we have very low infection rate due to this strict lockdown and totally isolation for at least 1 month, but with a negative impact and effect in economy of Albania. So in one side, I'm happy that the government took this measure because Albanian government and healthcare care system is not prepared to cope with this health emergency. And I think this is not the issue only of the Albania. This is the globally the country were not even well-developed country were not prepared for such situations. So as regard, yes, we saved the life of the Albanian citizens, but as regard the effect in the economy, as I mentioned, we will have very long-term implication, and it will be needed very much plans from the government to cope with the situation. As is the same situation in Albania, because it was not Albania and Western Balkan country affected to this COVID, it's globally affects. So of course we will have very impact also to limitation incomes from the our people that are working abroad and bringing money to Albania. So of course it will affect also about this.
Coming back to the measures, the healthcare system does not seem to be overloaded by the COVID pandemic, but as you mentioned before, by the earthquake and all the tragic effects. However, in those restrictions, in that atmosphere, the Prime Minister Edi Rama is called Mr. Korona because he's the chief of the crisis management. And I would like to ask you what is the acceptance among first of all the population of Mr. Korona, and also among the opposition, the parliamentary opposition in Albania, and just to catch a little bit of this atmosphere in the country.
Mr. Korona was leading this technical working group and decided to take this strict measure for Albania. So I think the citizens of Albania are aware that our health care system is unequipped and not prepared to cope with this health emergency. So from one side, they are, let's say, I don't know is the right word to say happy that the government took this measure, but on other side, of course, you can hear people that are frustrated, disappointed, they lost the job, they lost the businesses, and but you know, as he announced, we are in the war. We have to lose something. So we save the life of the people, and we have negative impact in our economy. As regards the political situation, I think it was a certain moment that we had peace collaboration between politicians, but constantly we have the fight mode between majorants and the opposite in the country, and this is one of the issues that affect our integration processes in Albania, and this is something that appears time to time in Western Balkan country.
And when we talk about the acceptance among people, especially young people, how do they cope, and are they dissatisfied or just tolerate the situation? Because I suppose they are one of the most affected. Because in Austria, for example, the schools are opening now, and what is the employment situation for young people in Albania, and also the lockdown of schools, and all the effects and all the problems which are related to such lockdown.
Yes, the school in Albania are locked down since 10 of March 2020 and will continue to be closed till September. So, as regard the youth, you see the disappointing that still the government, we do not have the proper education system, and this is one of the reasons that we have very high migration rate of youth and brain drain from Albania, but also from the Western Balkan country, and they migrate to Germany, Austria, Netherlands, England, because they see as a solution to find a job and for their perspective. So this situation, earthquake and COVID, of course, will impact also to the youth situation, which is currently isolated, and of course the unemployment rate of youth will be much higher. The majority of the youth in Albania are working in the call centers, so for some period they will close due to the lockdown of the country. So it is expected that this year the unemployment rate it will be much more higher.
And when we are talking about Austria and Germany, so Edi Rama himself was visiting Angela Merkel in January this year, and Merkel also stated that Albania and North Macedonia are an important part for European Union, and also in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, the EU also decided in March to start with the negotiation talks with both countries, and also the Western Balkan Summit under Croatia's EU presidency, we mentioned it before, gave some outcomes. So I would like to ask you, how would you rate this specific step within the EU integration process concerned to Albania? Because during this Western Balkan Summit under Croatia's EU presidency, there was not explicitly mentioned EU enlargement, but European perspective. So, what is your opinion about this outcome? Because in fact, it's nothing concrete to talk about, I would say.
Yes, Silva, in the March, European Commission decided to open talks with North Macedonia and Albania. And this is very good news for both countries that are struggling for many, many years to open the talks with EU. And I think this is a kind of encouraging message for both governments. They recognize the efforts done by both countries to fulfill the criteria for the memberships. So talking about EU integration, but I will focus will focus in Albania. Is if you ask, I think citizens now is a long story without end. I remember that now today that we are talking, we are 17 years after Selanik Summit. And Albania was recognized as a potential candidate country in 2000, opened negotiation for stabilization and association agreement in 2003, and completed signed agreement on 2006. Agreement entered in force after ratification in each parliament of member state in April 2009. And I remember that time I was part of the Ministry of European Integration, that in 2009 we submitted the application for EU membership. And from 2019 till June 2014, EU decided to grant Albanian candidate status. And from 2014, we are struggling to convince EU family to open the talks. So it's a very long process. It's assessment, missions, negotiation, convincing, discussing with them about reforms and fulfillment of criteria, Copenhagen criteria, for rule of law, good governance, public administration, fighting against corruption and organized crime, and protection of human rights and minorities' rights. So it's a long process that it takes for Western Balkan country and especially for Albania. But as I mentioned, if you say EU integration process, long story but without ends, it's not something that we are expecting from EU to do our homework. So it's us that we need to do our homework in order to be part of the family. Now, after many years that we are talking for EU integration, we are doing our agenda based on the goals for EU integration in our countries. Citizens of Albania still continue to be very positive and optimistic, including youth, that they see Albania as part of EU. So, based on different studies conducted in Albania, we have the very high rate, and I think we are the only country in the region that we have such high rate that we see ourselves as part of EU big family, especially youth. But youth are very enthusiastic. And on other side, they are expected to be part of this process. So they are demanding. So they are looking to be part of process negotiations and decision maker for entire process of EU integration. As regards Zagreb's summit, it was clear stated by President of European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, that Western Balkan belong to EU. And I share the same opinion. We are not only physical part of EU as a continent, but we are in the middle, as surrounded by EU member states. And I think it's in interest of EU member states to support Western Balkan country, because we are very fragile region with a lot of conflicts. So it's not a way to not discuss and to not be part of EU. Mm-hmm. So as regards what has been articulated in this Zagreb and declaration of Zagreb summit in May, that member states confirmed and support for EU perspective. I think that they confirmed that to all Balkan countries that we have perspective in the EU. They are waiting for us to join. But of course, if we continue with our homework and reforms. And they are supporting all Western Balkan countries to do this reform with financial support now for many years. So, and they confirmed that they will support us not only to overcome this crisis from earthquake, for COVID, but also will continue to support us for rule of law, for fighting against corruption, for public administration reform, and for the social sector. And they encourage again regional cooperation and reconciliation in the region. So I got a very positive message for this summit. So what I got is that we need to continue to do our homework, and the message in the March that they decide to open the talks. This is again very positive message from the side of European Commission. As regard the current situation in Albania, for the preparation of these talks, so we have adopted the negotiation structure. One day before Zagreb summit, chief negotiator has been appointed. Different technical assistants are in place or in process to be contracted that will support government of Albania, civil society for entire process of negotiation. So I think we are ready to start this process, which is expected for many, many years.
Okay, so this sounds absolutely different than European fatigue or kind of frustration. So it's optimism, although it's a process of a lot of years. And you mentioned you have been involved in various steps regarding the EU integration process. So I would like to ask you a personal question. What were the most challenging steps apart, so except of this one, which we are all facing at the moment, but since 2006, which steps and then were most challenging, and where was that also were there several changes, or the acceptance, or was it always the same? Because when we take a look to other countries, you can see that the opinions might change. So the EU has in several countries lost its glance of hope, of good living standards. And when I'm listening to you, it's this optimism. still exists in Albania, and it has not changed.
Yes, it's true. We still are optimism for this process. So, as I mentioned, we have submitted in 2009 the application for EU membership. So, and it was a very hectic period to negotiate with Brussels. And till June 2014 that we got candidate status. Several mission processes were led by Albanian government, let's say, to lead the reform towards the key priorities set up by the commissions. So, however, certain reforms are in good progress. I think this is my personal view, and I think that this is something that needs to be solved, and it's continuously receiving as recommendation also from the Brussels is turnover of public administration in Albania remains very high. And for me, this is very crucial. So every time that you change public administration, you have lost the memory of the processes, the investment done by different donors to the capacity building of public administration. And of course, it's difficult then to start the new processes that are required for EU integration processes, and etc., etc. So I think this is crucial, and this is something that needs to be solved in Albania very soon.
Mm-hmm. So apart from several political struggles, there is the commitment and the broad consensus that Albania should be part of the European Union. So, as I understood you well, in contrast to other countries where it's in a way also contested, and also where it also started to redefine the term EU integration. So just to be neighbored by EU member countries. So this is unquestioned, as I understood you well. The optimism still holds, although we all go through complicated and complex developments.
Yes, Sylvia, as regards Albania, EU integration process is on agenda not only of the government but also in the opposition. So as regards EU integration, this is the common goal for citizens and for politicians. But the way how they are cooperating for this process, okay, this is room for the discussion, but the goal is there and the optimism is there. And we are very much enthusiastic for this process.
So many thanks, Rudina. So we stop and then can summarize all our conversation with great optimism, which we need, of course. And also when you mentioned the lockdown is also lightened, we can see a light through the tunnel. And this is a pro-European and a clear statement, and IDM is also working for a strong Europe and European Union. And in that context, I would like to lead the attention to our initiative, the IDM initiative, What's the Matter Europe, where we invite our viewers, our followers to send us short inputs, short videos on objectives that symbolize and represent Europe, European Union for them, and also to tell us the story. So we all invite you. This initiative holds until June 12th, the date when in Austria the referendum on the EU accession took place. 1994 and 1995 we were a member of the European Union, so we have a lot of nice memories, and this is an initiative which goes forward. And it's also good to hear, Rudina, that this optimism has not stopped, although there are a lot of challenges. So many thanks for your insight and also all the information and knowledge we could share with you, Rudina. And many thanks for watching us, and we continue with all our YouTube formats you can find on our YouTube channel, as well as all the established formats we have at IDN. So I can say stay tuned, and looking forward to our further initiatives, and Rudina also looking forward to having a new form of cooperation, inviting you to a conference when we are again able to organize them after the great lockdown.
Thank you very much, Silva.